Students, this is the last class on head and neck development, and today I shall tell you on the development of the face of the embryo. At the end of this class, you will be able to describe the development of the face. You will also learn the different steps which leads to the formation of the palate and the nose, and we will also discuss about the congenital anomalies associated with the development of the face. Now coming to the development of the face proper, by 4th week of development, the face of the embryo, it is represented by a midline depression called the stomodium, and this stomodium is bounded by some enlargements which are called the facial prominences. In this picture, you can see a depression which is called the stomodium. Now let me tell you, the stomodium is nothing but the most proximal end of the developing primitive gut. We have already learned how the primitive gut develops in an embryo, and I did tell you the proximal end of the primitive gut, it is closed by a membrane called the buccopharyngeal membrane or the oropharyngeal membrane, remember? So that part is called the stomodium. The part which is closed by this membrane, the future mouth is represented by the stomodium, which is the most proximal end of the developing primitive gut. And it is said that by 27th day of development, the buccopharyngeal membrane closing the pharyngeal gut, it disappears, so that the mouth cavity becomes continuous with the pharyngeal gut. So as you can see in this picture, the stomodium, it is bounded cranially by a prominence or swelling which is called the frontonasal prominence. Remember, the frontonasal prominence, it develops by proliferation of the mesenchyme cranial to the neural tube, developing neural tube. So the mesenchymal tissue which lies cranial to the developing neural tube, it proliferates to form a swelling, and this swelling we call it the frontonasal prominence. Now caudally, the stomodium, it is bounded by the mandibular process or mandibular prominence. I also remember telling you in my first class of head and neck development that the first pharyngeal arch, it has got two processes. The upper one is called the maxillary process or prominence, and the lower one is called the mandibular process or prominence. That means together they form the first pharyngeal arch. So in this picture we are looking at the two divisions of the first pharyngeal arch. That means these two prominences, they will be forming the lateral as well as the lower boundary of the stomodium. So let me repeat again. The stomodium is bounded cranially by the frontonasal prominence. On either side, it is bounded by the maxillary prominence or maxillary process, and in the lower part, it is bounded by the mandibular prominence or mandibular process. And remember, these two maxillary and mandibular processes, they are nothing but they are part of the first pharyngeal arch. Further development of the face will depend on coming together of all these processes and fusion of all these processes. So with development, all these processes will fuse with one another, which will ultimately lead to the formation of the face of the embryo. This is an actual electron micrograph picture of an embryo. Here you can identify the stomodium, the gap in the middle. You can see the frontonasal prominence being here represented by the term nasal placode. The caudal to the stomodium, you can identify the mandibular process, and on either side of the stomodium you can see the maxillary process. So these two are the parts of first pharyngeal arch. Now below the mandibular process you can identify the second pharyngeal arch, and separating the mandibular process and the second pharyngeal arch you can see a groove. So that represents the first pharyngeal cleft, which we have already discussed. So having learned about the formation of the frontonasal process, let us see what are the development that will occur in this process. Now as development continues, what happens? There occurs local thickening, a circular area of local thickening on the surface ectoderm of the frontonasal process on either side of the midline. As you can see in the picture, two circular thickening is being shown. It looks like the eyes, but actually it is not the eyes of the embryo. Just remember, this local thickening on either side of the midline, it occurs on the frontonasal process with development, and this local thickening we call it the nasal placard. After this nasal placard is formed, what happens? They will bury into the substance of the frontonasal process, thereby leading to the formation of a pit on either side of the midline, and this is called the these pits are called the nasal pits. So first there will be formation of the nasal placard, and this nasal placard will bury into the underlying mesenchyme to form the nasal pit, and this happens at about 5th week of development. So you can identify the frontonasal process. Below the frontonasal process you can see the stomodium, which is bounded on either side laterally by the maxillary prominence, and caudally the stomodium, as you can see, it is bounded by the mandibular process or mandibular arch, they have written here. Now after the nasal pit is formed, that means I told you the nasal pit is formed when the nasal placard buries into the substance or mesenchyme of the frontonasal process. Now when this pit is formed, the margin of the pit is bounded by a raised area. Okay, so this margin surrounding the nasal pit now can be divided into two parts. Okay, a lateral part being represented by the blue color in the picture, it is called the lateral nasal process, and a medial part being represented by the yellow color in this picture is called the medial nasal process. In fact, together they constitute the margin of the nasal pit. Now for descriptive purpose, for better understanding, we divide it into the lateral nasal process and the medial nasal process. Hope you will remember the medial and lateral nasal process. The blue one is representing the lateral nasal process and the yellow one is representing the medial nasal process. The orange color area is representing the maxillary process, which forms the boundary, lateral boundary of the stomodium, and the white margin below the stomodium, it is representing the mandibular process. I am sure you can identify the various prominences here. The blue is the lateral nasal prominence or process. The yellow is the medial nasal process. The orange color represents the maxillary process, and below the stomodium it is the mandibular process. Now with development, the maxillary process, it grows medially from either side, and as it does so, it pushes the medial nasal process towards the midline. Now as a result of pushing from either side, the medial nasal process, they fuse in the midline, and with the fusion of the medial nasal process, it will form the upper part of the philtrum the philtrum of the upper lip and the tip and crest of the nose, as it can be seen in the last diagram. Now let us see how the lips of the embryo will be formed. So we have already learned that the philtrum part of the upper lip, it is formed by fusion of the medial nasal processes. So the lateral part of the upper lip on either side, as you can see in the picture, it is formed by the maxillary process. That means the maxillary process from both sides will come and fuse with the philtrum part of the upper lip, which is formed by fusion of the medial nasal process to complete the formation of the upper lip. On the other hand, the lower lip is entirely formed by the mandibular process. Mandibular process will form the lower lip. That means the maxillary process or the medial nasal process do not contribute to the formation of the lower lip. It is only the mandibular process they will form the lower lip, whereas the upper lip is formed by contributions from the maxillary process as well as the medial nasal process. It is observed that initially the lips remain adherent to the underlying tissue. Now to separate the lips from the underlying tissue, there occurs local thickening of the ectoderm, and this local thickened ectoderm is called the labiogingival lamina. After its formation, there occurs degeneration of the labiogingival lamina. Now after degeneration, degeneration of the labiogingival lamina leads to the formation of a deep furrow between the lips and the gums. This is how the lips are separated from the gums, and the only remnant of the labiogingival lamina is the frenulum of the upper lip. All of us have the frenulum, which connects the inner surface of the upper lip to the gum. So that is a remnant of the labiogingival lamina. There is no such remnant seen on the lower lip. So far we have talked about the fusion of the medial nasal process. Now let us see what happens to the lateral nasal process. Medial nasal process is represented by the yellow color, remember, and the lateral nasal process is being represented by the blue color, and the orange color is the maxillary prominence. Now as the maxillary prominence, I said it will go medially. So when it goes medially, it also comes in contact with the lateral nasal process. You can see the groove between the maxillary process and the lateral nasal process. This groove, which separates the lateral nasal process and part of the frontonasal process from the maxillary process, is called the nasolacrimal groove. Now with development, the cells on the floor of the groove, they proliferate and form a solid cord, and this cord then buries itself into the substance of the frontonasal prominence, and later on it gets canalized to form the nasolacrimal duct. The upper end of the nasolacrimal duct enlarges to form the nasolacrimal sac, or lacrimal sac it is called. So this lacrimal sac and the nasolacrimal duct so form, it connects the medial angle of the eye and it drains into the nasal cavity. So this is how the nasolacrimal duct and the lacrimal sac develops in the embryo. It is at the junction of the maxillary process laterally and the lateral nasal process and part of the frontonasal process medially. So coming to the development of the nose. So we have learned that the nose of the embryo develops from 5 facial prominences. These 5 facial prominences would be: number 1 is frontonasal prominence. Frontonasal prominence forms the bridge of the nose. Then we have the 2 medial nasal prominences. So together, after fusion, the medial nasal prominence forms the crest as well as the tip of the nose, and the 2 lateral nasal prominences, they form the sides as well as the ala of the nose. So blue color, it represents the lateral nasal prominence. The yellow color, it represents the medial nasal prominence. You know the paranasal sinuses. So paranasal sinuses are air-filled spaces which are found within some bones of the cranial cavity as well as bones of the face, especially the maxilla. So these paranasal sinuses, how do they develop? They arise as diverticula of lateral nasal wall. You have already learned how the lateral wall of the nose develops. So paranasal sinuses, they develop as diverticula of lateral nasal wall, and these diverticula, they extend into the maxilla to form the maxillary air sinus. They also extend into the ethmoid to form the ethmoidal air sinuses, into the frontal bone to form the frontal sinus, and into the sphenoid bone to form the sphenoidal air sinus. So we have maxillary sinus, ethmoidal air sinus, frontal sinus, and sphenoidal air sinuses. Now these diverticula, which are destined to form the paranasal air sinuses, they grow and reach their maximum size during puberty. And these sinuses, they contribute to the definite shape of the face besides adding resonance to the voice. Now, development of the face is incomplete if we do not know the development of the palate. As you all know, the palate, it separates the oral cavity from the nasal cavity. We have got a hard palate on the anterior aspect and a soft palate on the posterior aspect, which contains the uvula. Actually, the hard palate, it constitutes approximately 90% of the palate. The palate, it develops by fusion of primary palate as well as secondary palate. Now you are to know what is primary palate or intermaxillary segment and what is secondary palate, where does it develop from. So to understand the primary palate, let me tell you again about the superficial contribution of medial nasal prominence and maxillary process. So we have already learned the superficial. If you are to tell the superficial contribution, that means what we can see. So the superficial contribution of the medial nasal prominence, besides contributing to the tip of the nose and the crest of the nose, it contributes to the formation of the philtrum of the upper lip, and the maxillary process, it contributes to the formation of the lateral part of the upper lip. So this is superficial contribution. Now it also have some deeper contribution to the development of the mouth cavity of the embryo. Now if you see in total the contributions that we get from the medial nasal process, one is labial component. Labial component means the philtrum part of the embryo, so this is the philtrum part of the upper lip. Then it also has an upper jaw component. That means the upper 4 incisor teeth, they develop from the medial nasal prominence, and it also has a palatal component. You can see in the picture the triangular area behind the incisor teeth. So that palatal component represents the primary palate. In other words, the medial nasal prominence, after it fuses in the midline, it forms the philtrum part of the upper lip. It will form the upper 4 incisor teeth in the embryo, and it will also form a part of the palate which is triangular in shape just behind the incisor teeth, and this part is called the primary palate. Now as for the rest of the palate will be formed by contributions from the maxillary processes. So you have seen the maxillary process in the previous diagram. So from there, two shelves will arise, and these two cells, they grow towards the midline and they will fuse in the midline to form the rest of the palate. And this contribution from the maxillary process is called the secondary palate. And the junction of the apex of the primary palate with the secondary palate, it is represented by the incisive foramen. So this diagram shows how the secondary palate is formed. As you can see, from the maxillary process, two shelves called the palatine cells, they arise and they grow medially, and ultimately they fuse in the midline as well as with the primary palate, which is represented by the yellow color here. So these two, by fusion of the primary palate and the palatine cells, ultimately the palate will be formed that will separate the oral cavity from the nasal cavity in the embryo. So this is the face of an embryo at 7th week of development. Remember, I think you can identify the stomodium. You can see the nasal pit here. So if you can see the nasal pit, on the lateral side it would be the lateral nasal prominence. On the medial side it is the medial nasal prominences. So here you can see the fused medial nasal prominence, and which has formed the philtrum part of the upper lip. You can identify the maxillary prominence forming the lateral part of the upper lip. Also in this picture you can see the nasolacrimal groove. Then below it is the mandibular prominence, which is destined to form the lower lip and lower jaw. Remember, formation of the face and oral cavity involves the fusion of all these different prominences, and these prominences, they merge and fuse in a highly orchestrated fashion. So coming to the summary of face formation. Now if I ask you how the face develops, so you will have to tell me that it develops from 13 facial prominences that surrounds the stomodium. So let us see the contributions we get from each of these facial prominences. So the frontonasal prominence, it will form the forehead, bridge of the nose, medial and lateral nasal prominences, which I have already explained. Now coming to the maxillary process, the orange color in the diagram. So maxillary process, which is a part of the first pharyngeal arch, it will form the cheeks, lateral portions of the upper lip. The medial nasal process, which fuse with development, it forms the philtrum part of the upper lip, the crest and tip of the nose. The lateral nasal process, it forms the sides of the nose as well as the ala of the nose. And the mandibular process, it will the two mandibular processes will fuse in the midline and it will form the entire lower lip. And finally, the shape of the face is determined by the expansion of the paranasal sinuses and also by the growth of the maxilla and mandible to accommodate the teeth. So this is how the face develops. I am not going in detail of the development of the teeth. Just know that the teeth arises from an epithelial mesenchymal interaction between overlying oral epithelium and underlying mesenchyme derived from the neural crest cell. At first there would be formation of the dental bud, then it will lead to the formation of dental cap. Ultimately dental bell will be formed. And remember, the buds for the permanent teeth are formed during third month of development, but they will remain dormant until approximately 6th year after birth. And this permanent teeth bud, they lie on the lingual aspect of the milk teeth. Now coming to the congenital anomalies associated with the development of the face. Number one is facial cleft. Cleft means an opening or gap. That means facial cleft means any opening or gap on the face, we call it a cleft. Now facial cleft may include cleft lip, cleft palate, cleft uvula, etc. Cleft lip means a gap in the continuation of the lip. So the cause of the cleft lip, it could be due to partial or complete lack of fusion of maxillary prominence with medial nasal prominence on one or both sides. So you know how the upper lip is formed. It is formed by philtrum is in the middle, which is formed by the medial nasal process, and from either side the maxillary process will come and fuse with the philtrum. This is how the upper lip is formed. So if any one of them fail to fuse with one another, it will result in the formation of cleft lip. Similarly, cleft palate will result due to lack of fusion of palatine cells, and this lack of fusion could be due to smallness of the palatine cells. It could be due to failure of the cells to elevate or failure of the tongue to drop from between the cells. So this will result in the formation of cleft palate. That means a gap in the palate when the fusion of the palatine cell will not occur. Now coming to cleft lip, it is common as compared to the cleft palate. It occurs in 1 per 1000 birds. It is more common in males than in females. The picture 1 is showing unilateral cleft lip, and if you look at the picture below, this is bilateral cleft lip, where the philtrum is in the middle, which is normally formed, but the maxillary processes have failed to fuse with the philtrum to form a continuous upper lip. Studies shows that normal parents with a child with cleft lip have 4% more chance of having a second child with cleft lip. Now, if two siblings are affected, it is possible the risk increases by 9% that the third sibling will be born with cleft lip. If one of the parents has a history of cleft lip and they have one affected child, the risk factor increases by 17%. That means it runs in families. As I said, cleft palate, it is less common as compared to the cleft lip. It occurs 1 per 2500 births, and it is more common in females than in males. They say in females the palatine cells, they fuse at a later time than in males. It fuses earlier in males and it fuses later in females. So that could be a reason why it is more common in females. Normal parents, if they have a child with born with cleft palate, the chance that the second child will be born with a cleft palate increases by 2%. Affected parents with an affected child, then the risk factor increases by 15%. Now, if affected child is there in a family and he has an affected relative, the risk factor increases by 7%. Now here the first picture is showing a cleft independent cleft palate where the lip is normal, and the lower picture is showing cleft lip and palate which has occurred together. These are some of the rare facial clefts. First picture is oblique facial cleft, second is also bilateral oblique facial cleft, and the third picture is bilateral cleft lip, cleft upper lip. Cleft lower lip is a very rare anomaly, but there are some cases which have been found. Another congenital anomaly is macrostomia. So macrostomia, it means wide mouth. Macrostomia will result when the maxillary process and the mandibular process, they fail to fuse to a larger extent. Okay? So then means the baby will be born with a very wide mouth. These are diagrams showing macrostomia, and this requires surgical correction. This might require surgical correction. This is a condition called microstomia. Microstomia means very small mouth, and this will result if the process and the mandibular process, they fuse with one another to a greater extent, leaving a very small cavity in the form of a mouth. This will also again require surgical intervention. Thank you.